Hi guys, so today we're going to be building our first AI agent. For that we're going to be using Hugging Face's small agent framework, and the use case here is a customer support agent. So these customer support agents will have the ability not just to answer customer inquiries, but to query the database and to eventually update product stock, so to make sales. Now, of course, this is a notebook for a sort of example. In practice, in reality, you'd have all your databases in production, the agent wouldn't be handling Excel files or sheets, but in this example, I think it's easier to show it like that. So essentially, we have two databases here. The first one is products, the second one is emails. The products is just a product catalog with a product ID, name, category, and description, the stock, and the seasons and the price. The second one is the list of emails that we got. We got essentially two types of emails. Product inquiries, so those are just questions about a certain product, and orders, which are customers wanting to buy some product. So here we have an example of an order. They're just saying, hey, send me 5 of these products and 2 of these ones. Whereas here you can have, for example, questions about a product. So hi there, the description for this product says these, just random questions. And even for the orders, you might have some weird requirements, like for example, this one, I want to order all the remaining wallets you have in stock. So for our agent to be able to handle this sort of thing, he has to know the amount that we have in stock previously and things like that. So how are we building this? First, I did this design to better understand how we're going to be doing this. So we have our email data set, and then we have a first first component that will classify these. And then you have this data set, which will eventually say if this is just a question or an order. And you have this LLM and our call LLM function, which will be used everywhere. And for our product database, we're going to create a vector database out of that. And for that, we're going to have a retrieve product function. And after we've classified our email and vectorized our products, we can have 2 separate agents. One that will handle order requests, so they will have access to retrieve product function, and they will update the answer for the customer and the order status table. And then we have another agent that will be handling customer inquiries, so they will be writing a response, and they also need to be able to retrieve products. This is a very simple use case, and in theory you could have one single agent that would handle everything. You just give your agent all of the tools to classify your emails, to find products, and they would be responsible for, in one call, making the classification, finding the product, writing the answer, everything. In practice, it doesn't work that well. The agent will often make mistakes and won't follow that structure. So I think it's a good approach to have this sort of hybrid format, where the agent has some autonomy, but you also set up the workflow in the way that you think will handle these requests best. In here, what our agent has in terms of autonomy is basically to write the queries to retrieve the product, to write the answers and things like that. You'll see that to retrieve a product, depending on the customer specifications, it's not very easy, and they might have to iterate, they might have to run a few queries, especially if the customer is asking for multiple products and things like that. So we're going to be focusing on the agent part, so we don't have to, We're not going to waste too much time on how to call an LLM. I think we all know how to do that. But either way, I'm going to be sharing the full link to the tutorial in the description, so you can see the code in more detail. But we've created this function. We're going to be using GPT-4o, and we've created this function that can call the LLM. This is the input data that we're getting from here, so products and emails. This is just a function that will create our output data sets. Here we're creating our vector database. So it's important, here I'm using ChromaDB, by the way, and it's important to choose well the metadata columns. For instance, in here I have this column with the seasons. I found it better to split it and make 4 columns, winter, summer, fall, and spring, and they are Boolean, and essentially the vector database will just say if the season applies to that product or not. I found the queries were better handled this way. Now, our first agent. So as I said, we're using small agents here. We can import 3 elements. So the OpenAI server model, because we're going to be using the OpenAI model. A tool calling agent, because this agent is not writing code, they have a code agent. This one is more for like calling tools. This is what we're doing. And this tool wrapper here, which we're using to create our first tool. So that's the function our agent has access to. It's very important for a tool to specify the types of each of the parameters, to give descriptions of them in the doc string, and to give examples, because all these doc string will be used by our agent to know how to handle this data. So in here, to query our product database, we need a query, and we need 2 types of filters, one in metadata, one in the document filter. So here, for example, I might want to make sure that our product name contains the word scarf and things like that. And then I give some examples of how our agent should handle the metadata filters. And then it's also good to give an overview of the product database and what are some of these values, so that our model can correctly filter and know the data types that are in there. And then I create my first agent, which is a product finder agent, which has 1 tool and uses the OpenAI model. So the first task is to classify emails. Now for this, we don't need an agent. We can just use a simple function that will ask an LLM to classify an email, and given a subject and a message, return an email class. And you can use structured output here if you want. I think it makes it more robust. And this function will just say if it's a customer inquiry about a product or an order. Now, to process the order requests, once we've classified, so we either have questions or orders, first, in order to process an order request, it's good to extract structured information about that order request. So for example, we are going to be needing product ID and quantity. And since there might be many products in the request, we treat these as a list of products that are being required. We have this function, and this function will be using our product finder agent. So essentially, I'm giving the prompt and I'm saying, hey, the customer is requesting these. So given the subject and a message, I need you to extract this information from the product. I know it's an order request and not just a regular question, because I've classified my emails first. So our agent is going to be running this prompt, and they have access to the query database tool. So here is just a function to ensure the output is a list if there's something wrong. And here we can see the trace of our agent. So we can see our prompt, we can see the subject and the message, and we can see how the agent treated these. So it called our tool query product database, and this was the query. So yeah, and then we can see the results of each query that it's using, and then it calls the final answer tool, which will write an answer from this, and then we can see the final answer, which is just a list, a structured list with a product ID and a quantity for each order. Now, in order to process the order, we don't need an agent or even an LLM. We can just iterate over these order information, see if the quantity is less or equal than the available stock. Then we can create the order and then subtract the quantity from the stock. So we just essentially update the stock. If not, if the customer is requiring more than we have in stock, we can say it's out of stock. I didn't handle this here, but ideally there should be a third status. So if the AI couldn't find the product, if there's something wrong, you set it aside so that a human can handle the order. And finally, you write the answer. So here you have a system prompt with some examples of answers, and then you give the original message and the order status. So the order status, if it's out of stock, then we're going to say, hey, it's out of stock. If not, then we can say the order is processed. And the idea here to use an LLM is, and it's not an agent that we're using, it's just a simple LLM call, is to have a personalized response. We're gonna see how that looks like, but essentially if the email says something like, hi, this is Liz, we can say, hi Liz, or in here they are asking it in Spanish, so we can make sure we're answering them in Spanish, things like that. And then you generate an order response, so it's just gonna be a table with the response for that email that can be handled by a separate system later on. And finally, we can handle product inquiries. So again, this time we can use our agent, and the tools that it will have will be the query product database. So for each one of these, it's running the prompt and trying to find the product that matches the customer inquiry. And yeah, now that I handled all of the customer inquiries, we can see our final spreadsheet, which looks like this. So we have our list of emails and their categories, so we know it's either an order request or a customer inquiry. We have order status, so for each of the orders, we know for this email it was an order. It was ordering this product, and then we can see for some emails we have 2 products. We know the quantity that they required, and we know if it's out of stock or created. And then we have the responses for both cases. So we can see we're addressing customers by their names if they put it in the email. We can answer them properly about their order. So we can say like, hey, I'm pleased to inform that your order has been successfully created, things like that. And the same for inquire or response. We can make sure the answers are there. We can see our Spanish answer here, even though we didn't have to specify anything. Just by seeing that the customer inquiry was in Spanish, our agent can handle it. So yeah, this is a very simple use case, but I think it kind of shows how to handle the small agents framework. It's actually very simple, I think, to use, and essentially all you need is a set of tools and to orchestrate those tools properly, and sort of knowing how to split your workflow between agents, simple Python hard-coded rules, and LLM calls. That's it. I hope this was useful for you, and let's keep on building.